Howdy, I'm Kurt Williams, and welcome back to my comic library tour. It's been more than a year since we last looked in on my bookshelves, and in that year, I moved to Georgia and I got engaged. I went to every comic shop in Michigan, and I also went to every comic shop in Georgia, and I have bought a ton of comics. There's so much new stuff on these shelves that I can't wait to show you. Speaking of state tours, though, I can finally announce for the first time that the next state that Kurt's Comic Review will be touring is Massachusetts. I've located 55 shops I need to hit. It's going to take me about 5 days of driving, and we're going to start on May 6th. So we're less than a month away. You're going to be hearing a lot about it in my upcoming videos, and of course I'm going to be doing fundraising just like I did for Georgia. Now, what we're really here to talk about is the comic library. And just like I said last year, when I think about my comic library and curating it, what I want to happen is for somebody to mention a comic book, and then I can shuffle over to my library like some old wizard and pull out exactly what they were talking about and flip to the exact page they were referencing and say, like this? So I just want to have the most complete reference bank with all of the obscure stuff, all of the main stuff, of course, that I can just go to anytime I want to research anything comic based. So it follows that in this video, you're going to see a lot of Marvel and DC and Image and Dark Horse and all the main superhero stuff, but you're also going to see a lot of history and a lot of reference material and a lot of cartoon stuff, because the history of sequential storytelling is so rich and dynamic, and I want to have the most complete perspective on it that I possibly can. Any comic that's ever existed has a whole list of influences and inspirations, and I want to be able to trace those inspirations and influences all over my bookshelf. And also, like I said last time, of course, I do not have a complete perspective on comics. I don't have every single comic that was ever published, so it's not a complete perspective yet. But that's the goal. That's what I want out of my bookshelf, so that's what I'm working towards. So without any further ado, let's get into one of my favorite shelves, my oversized reference, and also my history of cartoon section. Starting all the way at the end, we have The Art of Bone. Bone is the single most important graphic novel I've ever read. If you saw my video on my engagement, you know that I used Bone to propose. Following The Art of Bone is a couple of very old printings of Sex in the Comics and Women in the Comics, both by Morris Horn. I've paged through these, but I haven't really read them in totality because they're a little bit tricky to get through. Next up, it's the only Buck Rogers I have in my collection. It's a paperback edition. I really should have bought the hardcover edition because it was only like $10 more, and I'm kind of afraid to open this up. I bought this at Atlanta Comic Con when I first moved to Georgia. I love my Dick Tracy hardcover. Oh, look at that. I forget. When is this from? 1970. This is a 1970 printing of the celebrated cases of Dick Tracy. It's fantastic. And I've got the Best of Don Winslow of the Navy. I haven't read this yet, but I got it at Half Price Books. It was a great deal for a great copy. And here I've got 3 volumes of the Nostalgia Press Flash Gordon. These are also from the 70s. I love the Nostalgia Press imprint. They did Popeye and the Phantom, all kinds of those early, very important cartoons. This stuff is great. I love these. Also from Nostalgia Press, we have a volume of Mandrake the Magician. I read this. It's fantastic. I love it. And in a similar vein, I talked about this one a year ago. This is basically British Buck Rogers. It's fantastic. I mean, the artwork in here is just mind-blowing. Those colors are fabulous. I've got all 3 volumes of Dan Dare in this oversized printing, and I love them. I got Tor by Joe Kubert. I still have not read that. The Rocketeer. No collection is complete without The Rocketeer. This year, I finally bought Tintin in the Congo. It's the most controversial Tintin story. This is the version where he does not stick the dynamite directly into the rhinoceros, which, you know, I love animals, but I feel like that would be really funny to read, so I'm kind of disappointed they took it out. A couple volumes of Popeye Classics. I haven't read these yet, but I got them for a good deal. Here we got a couple things I bought at Book Nook here in Decatur. Fontaine Fox's Toonerville Trolley and George McManus's Bringing Up Father. A couple editions from looks like the 70s. Then we got some skinny stuff here. We got a little bit of Dick Tracy, and then we have a bunch of Terry and the Pirates. Some more stuff I got at Book Nook. These are wild. Really great early strip work, though. I think this is from the 30s and the 40s. That's all of this. Next, I got some Asterix. Man, I love Asterix. I got these at Goldmine Comics in Michigan. They were a good deal. I've even got this hardcover edition that I bought in Ann Arbor, I think. That's pretty cool. And then you've got to have Crazy Cat. This is volume 1 of Crazy Cat and Ignatz. I've got a couple of these little volumes, and then I've got a nicer oversized volume here that I got in Ypsilanti. I have one Beano book from 1984. I have nothing else Beano related. And just one volume of Orwell. Now this is an exercise in literacy. It is really tricky to get used to this accent that all these characters have and just to decipher their language because it's really dense. I got the first 4 volumes of Liberty Meadows by Frank Cho, some excellent cartoon work. Now this volume of The Yellow Kid is really important, but like I said in my last video, really hard to read because it is so boring. It is so hard to get through, but it is very historically significant. Marvelocity by Alex Ross. Oh man, gotta love that. This is kind of a reference book for Marvel Comics, the first 5 decades. I think I got that for $2. And then I have the updated visual history on Marvel and DC. These are the most up-to-date, I'm pretty sure. Volumes 1 and 3 of Umbrella Academy. I still have not found volume 2 for a price that I like, but I'm still looking. And I got these oversized editions of Little Nemo from Galactic Quest in Lawrenceville. I got them for a good deal. I love Little Nemo. And I have to put it on the floor because it's so huge, but I have this massive oversized, like actual newspaper sized edition of Little Nemo. I'm pretty sure this is all of it. Wow, this is a gorgeous copy. One of the only comics I've bought brand new. And then one shelf down from that, we have my more mainstream stuff, a lot of Marvel DC, but they're still oversized. So all the way at the end, we still have Aerosmith by Buziak and Pacheco. Lovely comic. Avengers Disassembled. I'm still very disappointed by this because it's not actual issues of Avengers. It's just issues of Captain America, Iron Man, Thor. Big bummer. Hickman's entire Avengers run. That was okay. Batman the Killing Joke, of course. Volume 1 of Coates' Black Panther, which was a little bit overly political for my taste. Captain America the Winter Soldier and Civil War, 2 of the greatest graphic novels ever to be made by Marvel. Civil War Spider-Man, I talked about that quite a bit in my video a year ago. I'm pretty sure I bought this after my last video, this omnibus of Daredevil by Frank Miller. I don't love the reproduction of the colors in here. It's too smooth and flat. There's not enough grain to it. I just bought this volume of Deadpool recently. It's okay. Doctor Strange by Aaron and Bachelot. That's fantastic stuff. And of course, we have Fantastic Four Full Circle by Alex Ross. This is amazing. This is what the Fantastic Four is all about. Alex Ross is just one of the greatest artists ever to be in comic books. It's amazing. Volume 1 of Hawkeye by Fraction and Aja. That's a groundbreaking series. Then we have Hulk, Green Hulk, Red Hulk, one of my oldest comics that I have. I've had it since I was like 8. The first 2 volumes of Immortal Hulk. I only got these because I did not jump on the series soon enough to get the single issues, but I have issues 20 through 50 in the single issue format. Impact, I talked about this in my video last year. That's amazing historical stuff. I did break down and buy The Last Ronin, I think from Dr. Nose, and I'm not a huge Turtles fan, so it didn't really mean anything to me. My Miracle Man Omnibus I bought at Fanfare in Kalamazoo. It was on a fantastic sale, and it is dark. It is classic Alan Moore, that's for sure. Monsters by Barry Windsor Smith. That is a treasure. That's like his magnum opus. Amazing stuff. Miss Marvel was better than I thought it would be. I just bought New Frontier, I'm pretty sure from Sentinel Comics, but I haven't read it yet. I know it's amazing. I'm gonna read it, don't worry. All 3 volumes of Paper Girls, that was pretty good. The Planetary Omnibus, one of my favorite comics of all time. I love Planetary. Warren Ellis is amazing. John Cassaday is amazing. If you haven't read Planetary, you gotta read this book. Powers Volume 1. I finally have a little bit of Powers. I bought that in Massachusetts, actually, when I was there last year. Skip to the end, that's Jeremy Holt. I saw him at a convention, asked him what his favorite comic was that he wrote. He said this one, so now I have it. Best of Spider-Man, that's J. Michael Straczynski and John Romita Jr. I don't love John Romita Jr., but when you can get this for like $5, it's worth it. Steve Ditko, you gotta have a little bit of history on here. And Thor by Jason Aaron. I did read this. It's pretty good. Got it for cheap. My oversized stuff spills over onto another shelf, so over here we've got the 12 by Straczynski. I love this series. I've been reading it forever. We got We 3 by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely. Another fantastic comic. The Complete Wolverine Origin. That's Origin 1 and Origin 2. I got this for $1. I just got this new X-Men omnibus from Fantasy Factory all the way up in Dalton. This was only like 30 or 40 bucks. It's amazing. A fantastic deal for this groundbreaking X-Men series. And then we got the Rise and the Fall of the Shi'ar Empire. That was okay. X-Men Endangered Species, pretty cool. I like that one. Manifest Destiny, that definitely felt like a good, strong new chapter in the X-Men. I got 1 volume of Y the Last Man. And then I just got these 2 volumes of Green Lantern by Jeff Johns from Infinite Realities. I think I got them for $20 each, not $30 each, but that's the entire thing. And yeah, it's a library book. It's got kind of a beat up slip case, but I don't care. It's still all the comics. I can just take this off if I get sick of it. And then next to that, we have a nice copy of Watchmen and Goodnight Hem by Jason and Saga by Brian K. Vaughan. I'm pretty sure this is signed by Vaughan, and this is just, I didn't have anywhere else to put these. Trucking right along, that brings us to my first shelf of regular-sized regular issues, where I have the first 4 volumes of Animal Man by Grant Morrison, which was fine. You know, it kind of dropped off in interest after a while, but whatever. Arca was recommended to me by the guys at Infinite Realities because they said it was very similar to the comic that I'm writing, and I read it, and I disagree, but that's okay. The first 2 volumes of Astro City Metro book, this is fantastic stuff. I would love to have all of Astro City. And then we've got The Authority. I love The Authority. Anything by Warren Ellis. We got Brian Hitch on the art. We also have Mark Miller and Frank Quitely coming in on volume 2. Excellent stuff. And then we get into the Avengers. My oldest Avengers graphic novel is The Greatest Battles of the Avengers from like 1992 or something. I just think this is great. And then this is super cool. It's a custom omnibus of the Avengers by Jeff Johns and Chuck Austin. I got this at Sentinel Comics, and ever since I got it, it's made me want to make my own omnibus, because some guy really did just send in his trades and a few regular issues and have them turned into an omnibus, and I think that's so cool. I got the first 3 volumes of New Avengers by Brian Michael Bendis and David Finch and Steve McNiven. Good stuff, but I'd rather have the oversized hardcover. Children's Crusade, and then New Avengers by Hickman leading into Time Runs Out. I loved Hickman's run on New Avengers. Great stuff. And I've got the first 3 hardcovers of Uncanny Avengers by Rick Remender. This was also really good, especially when you had John Cassaday and Olivier Coipel doing the art. For my Batman section, we have a first printing of Death in the Family, a couple printings of Year 1. I think this printing is really old. I don't know if it's a first printing, but it's old. And of course, you gotta have Year 2 on there as well. Batman Tales of the Demon is a whole bunch of Ra's al Ghul stories. I thought this was absolutely necessary to have on my shelf. Batman Prey, I'm pretty sure I got this at Vault of Midnight. I just grabbed it because it's an old copy. And then this is a first printing of The Dark Knight Returns. I know it's not the really famous cover. I think this cover actually came first. It's definitely a first printing. It's from 1986. I love it. But of course, I've also got a newer copy. I think this is like a 6th printing or something. And then I've got The Dark Knight Strikes Again and The Dark Knight Master Race. Strikes Again was okay. Master Race was really, he should have stopped. I got Batman War Games Act 1, Batman Turning Points, Planetary Batman Night on Earth, and then all of Scott Snyder's run on the New 52 Batman, including Death of the Family and Night of the Owls tie-ins. I've got all of that. 1 volume of Batman Reborn. I love Morrison and Quitely, so you know I gotta have it. The Black Glove, we got The Batman Who Laughs, we got Batman 3 Jokers, and then this is the only PS art book I have. It's The Black Condor. I grabbed it because it was $5. I got 2 volumes of Black Science by Rick Remender. That's pretty good. Blood Rick, I've talked about a lot. That's a really great Conan type book. I still only have the first 3 volumes of The Boys because I cannot find the next volumes for cheap. Brat Pack is a historically significant comic by Rick Veitch, but it is not a fun read, no sir. An old Captain America trade paperback, that's from the 90s, I think. That's John Byrne's work. I talked about this one at length in my last video. This is fantastic Captain America. This is what Captain America is about. Captain America Reborn, I still don't care about. I've got the volume of All New Captain America because I was doing research for a video. The Life and Death of Captain Marvel, that's an early printing. I got this volume of Captain Marvel I haven't read yet, but I figure it's important to have. And then this is a reprinting of some issues of Daredevil that were drawn by Frank Miller, but I don't think written by Frank Miller. Down one more level, we have Daredevil Born Again. This is an old printing trade paperback of Daredevil Born Again. Wow, it's amazing. I love these early Marvel trade paperbacks. They really reproduce the colors well. We got 2 volumes of Daredevil drawn by Joe Quesada. I love Quesada's artwork. Daredevil by Brubaker, Volume 1. I don't know if I've even read that yet. First couple volumes of Daredevil by Mark Waid. That is Excellent stuff. DC goes ape. I still haven't read this. I don't know if I ever will. First 3 volumes of Deadly Class. Like I said last year, I'm still looking for more volumes of this. First volume of Department of Truth. I do have all the individual issues of that. Descender by Jeff Lemire and Dustin Nguyen. That's pretty good. I didn't hook me. It was okay though. The first 3 volumes of East of West. I love Jonathan Hickman. I'm really looking forward to digging into that series. I talked about this one last year. Eden by the band Skillet. Not good. Still have the Elektra Saga. That's an old printing. Then Elektra Assassin by Bill Sienkiewicz. This one was a little overwhelming. I wasn't really sure how to read it. Eternals by Gaiman and John Romita Jr. Fantastic First, that's a bunch of reprintings of first appearances. It's pretty cool. Fantastic Four, Trial of Galactus, reprinting some John Byrne issues. That is really cool. Oh, and then you get the Marvel Knights Fantastic Four with Steve McNiven art on there. These issues are so great. I mean, this was early in McNiven's career, and you could already tell he was going to be amazing. The Civil War issues of Fantastic Four are some of the best issues of Fantastic Four I've ever read. Of course, I have Fear Itself. I love that event. A couple tie-in stories to Fear Itself. I just got this because it was cheap. Final Crisis. You know, I'm not a big DC fan, and this was really hard for me to get through. Got a little bit of Flaming Carrot on there. Bob Burden is a local. I got this one and met him at DragonCon. The Futurians by Dave Cockrum. Volume 1 of Geiger. You know I love Ghost Machine. Then I got Get Gyro here, followed by all 6 volumes of Gideon Falls, which I'm pretty sure I've read by now. Green Arrow, The Longbow Hunters. That's a historically significant story, but I didn't like it. A little bit of Green Lantern, Green Arrow there. Guardians of the Galaxy. I talked about this in my last video. Happy, that's a silly little 2 or maybe 4 issue series. And then I've got all of Matt Fraction's Hawkeye again, including some of the stuff that's not in the hardcover up there. The first 3 volumes of Headlopper. This series is nuts. I really recommend it. I have a lot more Hellboy now because I was given a bunch by one of my friends, so that's great. House of M, that's a very important Marvel event. Hulk, Future Imperfect. Gotta have that if you like Hulk. And then I've still got Planet Hulk. Very important reading there. Hulk No More, that's just continuing the Red Hulk storyline. I Am Legion with art by John Cassaday. This is a cute little thing. I finally read I Kill Giants, and the book is way better than the movie. Holy crap, that movie sucked. Ice Cream Man, I still want a nice edition of that. First 3 volumes of The Immortal Iron Fist, that's alright. We got the Infinity Gauntlet on here, an important event. 1 volume of Irredeemable, that was okay. I'm kind of over it. The Joker, that was okay. JLA, The Greatest Stories Ever Told. I haven't read this yet, but I'm looking forward to it. Followed by JLA, JSA. I think I got this because it was $1. And Justice. We got Alex Ross art on Justice. That's a great series. Followed by another Morrison and Quitely book, JLA Earth 2. This is essential reading for the Justice League. Kingdom Come. Talk about essential reading for DC. That's amazing. And then look at this. I've got Long Shot in an old trade paperback copy. This is the greatest X-Man, greatest comic character of all time. I love Long Shot. A couple volumes of the Manhattan Projects. And then the first 4 volumes of Manifest Destiny. I did finally find volume 2 sometime this year, but I haven't read it yet. This is a hardcover edition of the first issue of Marvel Comics, followed by an edition of the Golden Age of Marvel Comics, and an old trade paperback of Marvel's Greatest Super Battles. We have a lot of X-Men in there, a lot of Thor. And now if you'll join me here on the ground, we have more comic excellence, starting with crossover classics. The old Marvel and DC stuff like Batman and the Hulk and Spider-Man and Superman. This is before the DC versus Marvel series, which I do have. That's pretty cool. And then we've just got Marvels with Alex Ross art on there. This is a seminal Marvel story. You need to read this if you like Marvel Comics. Mind Management, Volume 1 by Matt Kindt. That was okay. Jack Kirby's Mr. Miracle, I still have not read. Moonshine was okay. Murder Falcon is amazing. You need to read it. This one is really cool. It's Scott McCloud's The New Adventures of Abraham Lincoln. I love this. And The One by Rick Veitch predates Watchmen, and it is very similar in tone, but it's very weird. I have Volume 1 of Preacher, but I didn't really like it. The Punisher by Stephen Grant and Mike Zeck. Love this series. Mike Zeck's art is amazing. Safe Sex, I still have not read. First 2 volumes of Sandman, including my old edition of Volume number 2. I still don't have more Sandman. Secret Origins is just a little bit of DC stuff. I love that Brian Bolland cover. An old printing of Secret Wars, followed by Secret War by Bendis and Secret Wars, again by Hickman. This is the one the movie will be based off of, not the first one, so please stop driving up the prices of this series. It's hard for me to get them now because of the movie. And then I've also got Secret Warriors by Bendis and Hickman. I got all 3 volumes of 7 to Eternity. That's pretty good stuff by Remender and Opeña. Sex Criminals, Chip Zdarsky there. I haven't read that one. Shazam by Jeff Smith. I talked about that one in my video more than a year ago. Siege, the main event. This is another important Marvel event. I got all 3 volumes of Skyward. I love that series. And I have the first 5 volumes of Something is Killing the Children. I'm just collecting this one in trade. I'm not bothering to pick up the single issues. First 2 volumes of Southern Bastards by Jason Aaron. And then we've got an old printing of Clone Genesis. So this is all of the clone stuff that happened before the Clone Saga. So all the weird stuff with the Jackal that laid the seeds for the main clone stuff later on. I've got an old printing of The Death of Jean DeWolf. I got that one at Dragon Con as well. And then we have the Saga of the Alien Costume. This is another old printing. I love that. I got Kraven's Last Hunt, as well as Spider-Man American Son and One Moment in Time. Matters of Life and Death is okay. The Wizard Spider-Man Masterpiece Edition I've had since 7th grade. I think my teacher actually gave it to me, and this is some of the best Spider-Man stories of all time. Volume 1 of Ultimate Spider-Man. I don't have much Ultimate Spider-Man, but I do want to collect these Ultimate Editions. Spy Island, this is by Chelsea Kane, I think? Yeah, Chelsea Kane is amazing. I will buy anything that Chelsea Kane makes. It's a very Wes Anderson style of comic book. Then we got The Savage Strength of Starstorm. I bought this because it's by Wes Craig's brother, and it was, just, you know, not good. I got Stray Dogs, signed by Tony Fleece. I think he did it. Yeah. Check that out. Tony Fleece and Tone Rodriguez. I met both of them at Motor City Comic Con. This old edition of Superman is so cool. It's a bunch of his old adventures from all the way back in the 30s to updated stuff in the 70s, which is when this is from. Got a little bit of John Byrne's work on Superman reprinted. The Death of Superman and World Without a Superman. You can find these anywhere. Superman President Luthor I haven't read yet. All-Star Superman by Morrison and Quitely is amazing. Superman Grounded by Straczynski is amazing. I got a reprint of Walter Simonson's Thor. I do have all the individual issues. A volume of Thunderbolts, which I kind of regret having. Another volume of Thunderbolts, which I was given. The first volume of Transmetropolitan, I still haven't had a chance to read this. First volume of Trees, I don't care about. Undiscovered Country, I haven't read yet. U.S. Uncle Sam with Alex Ross on the art. Now, this was some crazy stuff. I love it. Volume 1 of What's the Furthest Place from Here. This series is very unique, very fresh. I love it. And I got the first 3 volumes of The Wicked and the Divine, followed by Weapon X, which is a very important Wolverine story, and what I consider to be the best Wolverine story by Frank Miller and Chris Claremont. And then we've got Origins and Endings. That's where he gets his memory back. Civil War, followed by Evolution, which I've talked about quite a bit on my channel. The Wolverine Masterpiece Edition. That's another one that has a bunch of reprints of his most famous fights. And then we get into Wolverine Origins, and it drives me crazy that Volume 1 is the only one you can't find in hardcover. That's so annoying. Over here, we continue with the Wolverine Origins. I've got the rest of it, and the last 5 or 6 issues are not collected in this hardcover edition, which is so stupid. Little bit of Old Man Logan, and then we got Ultimate Wolverine versus Hulk. That's okay. Wonder Woman by George Perez. That's just something I should have on my shelf. It's excellent work. Wonder Woman Anthology. I also got that this year, I think. Love and Murder, I got that on there. I got a reprinting of the first 10 issues of the X-Men. X-Men in the Savage Land is a reprinting of, I think, the first 3 issues of Marvel Fanfare, which I do have now. I got them for $1 each, which is crazy. I've got 3 copies of this now. It's the Uncanny X-Men, the Dark Phoenix Saga, the first reprinting of the John Byrne and Chris Claremont issues. It's great stuff. But I've also got a newer copy of the Dark Phoenix Saga, followed by a new copy of Days of Future Past. We got Demon Bear on here. That's a great 3-issue series. This old printing of Asgardian Wars is super cool. It's got The Gift, as well as a couple of those annuals where Storm turns into the Goddess of Thunder. Great stuff here. Excalibur, I'm thinking about sending in all of my Excalibur issues and making custom omnibuses out of them, but we'll see. This I don't need to have on my shelf anymore because I got the omnibus up there. X-Men Deadly Genesis is essential reading, but not necessarily good. Astonishing X-Men is some of the best X-Men comics you will ever read. I recommend this to everybody. Curse of the Mutants is okay. I got volume 1 of X-Force, Angels and Demons from the Utopia era. That's pretty good. Avengers vs. X-Men. Gotta love that series. And of course, House of X, Powers of X. This is a very important series. Love Hickman's work. I wish that he had actually been able to keep doing what he wanted to do with the X-Men instead of the dumpster fire it turned into. And then I got a few oddities here. We got Man-Eating Cow Bonanza. That was a gift that was sent to me by somebody. And then I got a few volumes of EC, including Impact, crime suspense stories, and Tales from the Crypt. I love how simple these are. It's just the name of the book on the spine. It doesn't have anything else on there. That's pretty cool. A couple volumes of The Tick. I love The Tick. And one volume of The Spirit. That's all I've got so far. Moving up from there, we have my Mark Miller and my Robert Kirkman section. So I've got Superior, Kick-Ass, Kick-Ass 2, Super Crooks, Nemesis, Wanted, Kingsman, 5 volumes of Jupiter's Legacy, the second volume of Chrononauts, Kick-Ass 2 Prelude, Empress, Miles Per Hour, Huck, Book 1. I know Book 2 is going to start coming out soon. The first 2 volumes of the Magic Order, Space Bandits, King of Spies, Volume 1 of Ultimate X-Men, The Ultimates, Volumes 1 and 2, Wolverine Old Man Logan, the script book for Civil War, and Superman Red Sun. I have a ton of Mark Miller, but I gotta tell you, I'm pretty tired of him at this point, because I feel like, especially all of this Netflix stuff, is the same thing. Every series I've read by him in the last few years has just been like the same script with different fill-in-the-blank Mad Lib style plot. Like his latest issue that came out, Vatican City or whatever, just this past week, was so lame. There was nothing important about it. It's clearly just a pitch for a TV show. Everything he's been doing for the last like 5 years is clearly just pitches for TV shows, and they suck. I get really frustrated about Mark Miller right now because he's so good at comics. He has this great eye for talent, and he has written some really important stuff. Like The Ultimates was really important. Civil War is the greatest graphic novel that Marvel has ever made. But man, he's so cookie cutter now. I'm sick of the Magic Order. I'm sick of Jupiter's Legacy. We don't need a third Nemesis volume. I just wish he would stop making so much stuff and focus on making one really good thing. Moving on, I got volume 1 of The Walking Dead, but I still haven't read it. I know, I'm still way behind. I got volume 1 of Invincible I have read, and I'm looking for volume 2, but I got this for like $20 and I can't find volume 2 for cheap. 2 volumes of Firepower, that's pretty good, and 2 volumes of Oblivion Song. Another pretty good series. On the shelf above that, we have my Alan Moore section here, followed by some of my older stuff. I'm really proud of my Alan Moore section. I know I'm missing a few things, but I have all the really main stuff, like From Hell, which is a crazy retelling of the Jack the Ripper story, and it's got a ton of details. It's super dense. It's hard to get through, but at the end, it's a huge payoff. Then you got volume 1 of Miracle Man here, and all 6 volumes of Swamp Thing. That's great. V for Vendetta is a masterpiece, of course. Watchmen, this is a first printing I got for $1 at Koi's Comics in, where was that? That was close to Flint. I forget where that was, somewhere in Michigan. And then I've got volumes 1 and 2 of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, volume 3, Century, volume 4, The Tempest, Black Dossier, and Nemo Heart of Ice. This is all from the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen world. It's crazy how much stuff they put out, just those 2 guys on this world. But it's amazing. I love League stuff. I've still got this Tomorrow Stories book 1 by Alan Moore. I haven't even opened it yet. First 2 volumes of Top 10. That's pretty fun. And Albion, I don't know. It kind of went over my head. Then I've got Origins of Marvel Comics. This is great. I got it at Rabbit Hole somewhere in Michigan. It's reprintings of, first appearances, but it's like the first Marvel graphic novel. And then I've also got Son of Origins. I think I also got this one at Rabbit Hole. Very cool, very cool. The Superhero Women is from that same series. I paid way too much for this, but it's kind of hard to find, so I'm just excited to have it. Then we got The Power of Iron Man. I got this for $5. That's from the early 80s, I think. Another copy of The Uncanny X-Men. Like I said, I have 3. This is kind of a later printing, but still pretty early, of The Sensational She-Hulk by John Byrne. An early printing of Camelot 3000 with Brian Bolland art. This series is great. And this reprinting of a few issues of Frank Miller's Daredevil. This is pretty good. I think I got it for like $4. It's worth it. Now we're going to get back into some of the cartoon stuff. So I have this great box set of Tintin here with every story except for Tintin in the Congo, which is why I have that other edition. I love Tintin. I grew up reading Tintin, and I wish that I had the oversized copies of all of them, but this is so cute. I had to have it on the shelf. The Sculptor by Scott McCloud is his latest graphic novel. This was amazing. I just recently read it, and it is fantastic. It's an accomplishment. I've also got Zot by Scott McCloud, the black and white collection, which I have not read yet, but I'm looking forward to it. And I finally have all 7 volumes of Sin City. I read them all in the course of like 24 hours, I think, and it was too much. It was entirely misogyny and crazy levels of testosterone. It's overwhelming. But Snowman by Frank Frazetta, now that's amazing. He made this when he was 15, and it's so good. Like, what the heck, man? One level down, you can see we have my black and white Bone, followed by all of the colored Bone stuff, and I even have the first 3 volumes of the original Bone graphic novels, as well as an oversized edition of Rose with Charles Vess on the art, and Razzle by Jeff Smith, which was, not as good as Bone. It's hard to top Bone, but Razzle was still pretty cool. And then next to that, I have some Pogo, these early 1950s copies of Pogo that I love so much. I just recently bought this at Comic Signal in Michigan. This is so funny. I paged through it a little bit. I haven't read it yet, but it's great. Pogo is just such a great comic series. And then down here we got Cerebus. Oh man, Cerebus was crazy. What a freaking letdown. I know when I posted my video a year ago, I only had volume 1, and I talked about how funny it was and how similar to Conan and Bone it was, and I couldn't wait to read the rest of the series. And I think somebody commented about how mistaken I was and how I was in for a roller coaster, and I was like, how bad can it be? Man, by the time I got to volume 3, I was like, I've been bait and switched. This is some real shenanigans. This is not what I signed up for. But I made it through volume 10. I read the first 10 volumes of Cerebus, and then I gave up because I was so bored. I was so over it. It's so long-winded and dry and not fun at all. I mean, volume 1 was fun. So I haven't read volumes 11 through 14 yet, and I haven't bothered to collect the last few volumes because, man, I'm just... And then I've got Scott McCloud's collection here, Understanding Comics, Making Comics, and Reinventing Comics, because I feel like these are very important works to have if I really want to review comics and critique them. And then on this bottom shelf, we have my extra long stuff. So, like, we got my Nostalgia Press copy of Popeye, which is extra long. I love Popeye. And we got another volume of Flash Gordon here, also Nostalgia Press. We got my big Pogo volume that I got for super cheap. We got some Batman dailies from the 40s. And we got some Superman Sunday classics from the late 30s and 40s. I'm pretty sure that I have all of Bloom County now. This is Bloom County, this is Bloom County, this is Bloom County, this is Bloom County, this one, and this one, and this one. And I don't have the really short one right here, but I do have volume 1, the smaller one, somewhere else. So I'm pretty sure that I've got all of Bloom County as well as all of Outland. I love Bloom County and Outland. Burke Breathed is so good with the dry wit and the political commentary and just the absurd shenanigans. I got a few Garfield treasuries here. Garfield is a big part of my childhood. 1 volume of Lil Abner. I love Lil Abner. I would love to have all of that. Both volumes of Tukey by Jeff Smith. I haven't read this yet. Honestly, I'm kind of putting it off because I don't want to be disappointed by it. And we got a 25-year collection of Doonesbury. I haven't read much Doonesbury. I don't know. I just haven't gotten around to it. I've heard that it's pretty good. And if you thought we were almost done, then you're crazy. Because like I said, I've got so much more new stuff. Up here we have I Killed Adolf Hitler. That is fantastic. The Illustrated Al. I love Weird Al, so this is a must-have on my shelf. I've still got Vonnegut Slaughterhouse 5 up here, as well as all 3 volumes of March. Talking about John Lewis there, that's very important for me to have from the historical lens, as well as George Takei's They Call Us Enemy. And of course, Mouse, and I still have Persepolis, and T-Minus is a small graphic novel that I read in high school about the space race. And then we got a few random things here that I just recently got for like 50 cents each, just to, fill out my shelf and get some different perspectives in there. We got Jeff Lemire's Lost Dogs. I just got that recently. And Jenny Finn Doom Messiah by Mike Mignola. I got a couple of my Peanuts collections up here because I couldn't fit them anywhere else. And then 1 big volume of Pogo. My 1 volume of Akira. I still need to get the rest of that series. It's just not a priority. 2 volumes of Asterix. I love Asterix. Secret Agent X9. I got that at Argo's Bookshop in Michigan. That's great. weight. A Life Force by Will Eisner, very important work right there. A little bit more Peanuts. I have Blankets, but I haven't read it yet. I have Essex County, but I haven't read it yet. The Short Life and Happy Times of the Shmoo. Oh man, I love Lil Abner and I love the Shmoo. The Shmoo is amazing. I just recently read A Contract with God for the first time. It was okay. It was a little bit underwhelming. I don't know what I expected. This is a volume of, I don't know, some Korean manga that I just got like last week. It's in Korean, so I can't read it. But it looks interesting. It's got color. I just went back and started reading Usagi Yojimbo, and it was okay. Volume 2 of Concrete. That's pretty cool. Marvel Comics Guide to New York City. I take that with me every time I go. I got one volume of Strange Planet, which you might recognize from Facebook. A book written by Scott Lang. That was a present. I talked about that in my last video. A couple volumes of Yets. That's by Mike Basianowski, a kind of local artist in Michigan that I met. This was some of my earliest reading. I talked about this one quite a bit in my last video. It's okay. And this is a volume of the Overstreet Comic Price Guide from 1979. Over on this wall where you can't see, I've got a little bit more Peanuts, some really old Peanuts stuff, as well as League of Regrettable Superheroes and League of Regrettable Supervillains. And that's everything I could fit in that room. I had to do some overflow work into the library room, which came with this house that I'm in right now, which is so cool. But here on my bookshelves that came with the house, we've got all of my pocketbooks, which are very important to me, starting with my BC collection, which is 26 volumes of BC. And if you haven't read BC by Johnny Hart, it's so good. It's really dry, great humor. I wouldn't say it's the kind of thing you can read for hours at a time, but it's definitely a lot of fun. Following BC, we got a couple volumes of The Wizard of Id, also by Johnny Hart, and then my Peanuts collection, which starts with a couple of the earliest Peanuts books, but I don't have very much of it. I've only got like 10 volumes or so. And then one of the coolest pocketbooks in my collection is Dear President Johnson, which is a bunch of letters that children sent to Lyndon B. Johnson, illustrated by Charles Schulz. And this is just so funny. I got this on my tour of Michigan, I think, and it's one of the most treasured things on my shelf. Then I got a few volumes of Family Circus, which is really hard to read. A few volumes of Dennis the Menace, which is a little bit easier to read, but still not great, definitely dated. We got a couple volumes of Doonesbury that I pick up whenever I see them. Couple volumes of Hagar the Horrible. I remember reading that in the newspaper as a kid. Couple volumes of Mr. Magoo, which is goofy. One volume of Heathcliff. One volume of Beetle Bailey, that's a classic. One volume of Tumbleweeds. One pocketbook volume of Pogo, which I don't see very often. One volume of Ziggy, which is one of my favorite cartoon characters. Captain Ecology, that's an oddity for sure. U.S. Acres by Jim Davis, who did Garfield. This is nowhere near as good as Garfield. The Neighbor's Kids is a very old pocketbook that I don't know anything about. I got one pocketbook for Lil Abner. That's pretty cool. 2 volumes of Spy vs. Spy. That's a classic. I've been reading that forever. And a couple more Mad pocketbooks. I see these everywhere. I feel like they're just not nearly as special. And then I've got 1 volume of Dick Tracy. That's pretty cool, even though it's really beat up. That's okay. And Nguyen Charlie, which I talked about more than a year ago. This is, pretty racist, but it's still an interesting piece of cartooning history. And then up here we got my Astro Boy collection. We got volumes 1, 2, 3, 4, and then Omnibus 2 and 3. There's a little bit of story overlap there, but that's okay. I love Astro Boy. I did get this for $5. It was a great price. Astro Boy is just great cartoon work. The stories are really good. There's so much imagination there. It's great stuff. I've got 2 volumes of Star Wars in pocketbook format. I don't have A New Hope. I don't know if I've ever seen that, but I would like to find it. Starhawks, that's pretty cool. And I did find this year The Incredible Hulk, as well as Doctor Strange. And I still have this volume of Spider-Man. And I also picked up this volume of Fantastic Four. This is the only thing that I've ever really bargained for. And I was kind of irritated because I had seen this exact comic for $20 at the same booth at the same comic convention like 3 times in a row. And I was like, why would you have it priced so high if you're never gonna sell it? So I offered the guy $10 and I was like, I know you have had this for a long time at this price. I'm gonna give it a good home. Can I give you $10? And he said yes, which is great because why would you price it so high if it's never gonna move? And then the last thing on this shelf is my little DC pocketbook. of Superman, which I got at Mike's Comics in St. Clair Shores, I think. We're almost done, I promise. Right here we have my history of comics section. This is really important to me. A lot of this I had when I made my video more than a year ago, but I've since added the Penguin book of comics, which is super cool. And, you know, I've got Great American Comic Books, 100 Years of American Newspaper Comics, The Comics, which I think I got this at Dr. No's. I love having all of this reference stuff. I haven't really gone through it to just read it as it is, but I love reading one of these cartoons and then coming back and checking the context of that cartoon in the overall history of sequential storytelling. So these are some of my most valuable books on my wall, even though I get most of them for like $2. We've also got a book about Jeff Smith, a book about Will Eisner's early work, and a book about Winsor McCay's early work. I would love to have more books about creators. Then moving into my oversized cartoon books, we got some Get Fuzzy, which I've had forever. We got more Bloom County, which is a reprint of what I have in the other room, but that's okay. We have 2 volumes of Pearls Before Swine, which is one of my favorite cartoons. 1 volume of Doonesbury, 1 volume of Foxtrot, another cartoon I love. And then I've got, what is this, 5 volumes of Dilbert. Dilbert is just one of the greatest cartoons of all time. It was a huge influence to Pearls Before Swine. And then I've got these 3 oversized volumes of Calvin and Hobbes. That is, I'm like 99% confident saying that this is the greatest cartoon strip of all time. And then 3 volumes of The Far Side. That's really fun, goofy stuff. And then we got some Tintin here and some miscellaneous whatever. And this is the last shelf, I promise. We just have some of my cartoon stuff that's not quite as tall as the cartoon stuff down there. So we have 1 volume of Get Fuzzy way over here, 1 volume of Doonesbury, 1 volume of Foxtrot, a whole bunch of Dilbert. Gotta love Dilbert. Then you got 1 volume of Baby Blues. This is something I grew up reading a lot of. 3 volumes of Calvin and Hobbes. I'm not sure how much overlap I have between the big ones and the little ones, but whatever. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then a double. So 5 volumes of The Far Side. Great stuff. 1 weird Garfield thing that I got at a book fair in like 5th grade. Mr. Boffo. I think I got this at Book Nook when I thought it was closing. And 2 volumes of Mutt, a cartoon that I don't read very often, but it's definitely an important strip. 1 volume of BC because I had never seen it in this format before. Raw Sewage I talked about in my last video. This is great. There's that 1st volume of Bloom County. It's just a different format than the rest of mine. Comic Relief I got, I think, on my first day of touring Michigan shops. This is, you know, it's like Live Aid. We had comic artists all making stuff to raise funds for Africa, just like Queen raised funds for Africa at Live Aid in 1985. Then I've got a couple old volumes of Garfield there, followed by a reprinting of Garfield volumes, followed by Garfield Travel Adventures, which has this story about chucking a T-bird into a volcano, which I think about pretty often. I don't know what this is, but it was 50 cents, so I added it to my shelf. And The Amazing Cynical Man is a great comic. It's very similar to a lot of the cartoons I see online now. I've met Matt Feasel a couple times. It's very minimalist, but it's very good. I recommend it. And that should be everything. You are now totally updated on all of my bookshelves. You've seen my entire library. Of course, I am gonna go to every comic shop in Massachusetts, and then I'm gonna go to Motor City Comic Con, and then I'm gonna go to Heroes Con in Charlotte. So I'm probably gonna buy a bunch more stuff in the next few months here. But you'll just have to wait for next year when I do my annual library tour again. Like I said at the beginning, I'm going to Massachusetts next month. I'm gonna be doing some fundraising for it. I'm gonna be probably doing like some commission drawings. I'm not an artist, but I think it'd be goofy to just do it anyway. So if you're willing to pay me to draw something just to say that you did, then please let me know. And also let me know in the comments what you think was the coolest thing you saw on these shelves and what you think is missing and should be my next purchase. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Kurt Williams, and you are somebody else.